Welcome to Slow News Day Live. My name is Steve Boykinen. I am here in beautiful Boulder Creek, California, where the flannel shirt is our state flag, the pit bull is our state bird, and cannabis is our state flower. I've never done a thread, or I've never done a show about a thread that I saw on Twitter. And I'd honestly never planned on doing anything remotely like that. But yesterday, it just so happened that Susie Dawson, who we've talked about on the show before, who we talked about on the Free Assange Vigils, she's a Kiwi journalist from New Zealand. She co-founded the Internet Party of New Zealand. She's been a targeted activist and journalist for the better part of a decade. If it sounds like there's people moving around behind me, there are. We have a wedding to go to later today, and it's fucking crazy. But Susie Dawson just launched a campaign recently called One Woman versus Five Eyes. Five Eyes is the intelligence sharing network set up by the countries the United States, Canada, New Zealand, Australia, and the United Kingdom. These Five Eyes countries are responsible for a tremendous amount of global destabilization. They're also responsible for the targeting and persecution of untold number of activists and journalists, not just people who are anti-war or who are trying to bring awareness about, for example, WikiLeaks, or trying to shine light or draw attention to war crimes. The intelligence agencies will infiltrate any organization that they think is capable of bringing about some meaningful change. This goes all the way back to the 50s. If you've watched this show before, you've heard me talk about a radio broadcaster out here that used to come on KPIG radio and come on a couple of other radio stations up in Humboldt and Mendocino County. His name was Travis T. Hip. And Travis would talk about when he was at Berkeley in the 50s, early 60s, he joined this like gaming society where they called themselves like elves, gnomes, and dwarves, or some random weird, just super geeky shit. They were infiltrated. Campus organizations are ground zero for recruiting for both intelligence organizations and activist organizations. I want to get to the thread by Susie that prompted me to do this show, because I've always been tremendously impressed with her writing, but Twitter is a format where it's really hard to communicate through prose. And Susie Dawson has done an incredible job of just that, 140 characters at a time, hammering out a point that needs to be made so desperately in today's society. So let me just go ahead and start with that. After I address a question from the chat, Dingo, I am working on it. A little bit of live resin to the dome, never hurt anyone. So this is a thread from yesterday. Can't think of a better day than Friday the 13th to want to start drawing national attention again to the fact that spy agencies, Spycraft in general, and these global networks of intelligence gathering, sharing, and leverage be brought down. So I'm going to go ahead and start reading the thread, and as I go through individual tweets, we can talk about it. I'll add whatever information I have to corroborate her statements or support them, or argue them if need be. It starts out saying There needs to be a global movement to outlaw spies, spying, and spycraft. Urgently. These parasites in this thread, I'll explain why this is precisely what they are behind every single ill in our society and our politics and are what prevents us making progress. That is a bold and fucking brutal statement. And it's one that I support 100%. This is absolutely what made my head snap up and be like, holy fuck, I am absolutely reading all of the rest of this. So let's kick it off, because that's a hell of an introduction, and as a journalist you need that fucking opening line to grab some motherfuckers, especially when 80% of the people don't read past the headline. It's how conditioned, dumbed down, soundbite programmed we have become. I remember when that number was like half of the people or 40% of the people, and then it went up to 60% of the people. Now 8 out of 10 people aren't reading past the goddamn headline. Let's read past the goddamn headline. She says, I've spent nearly this entire decade studying spy agencies, their activities, networks, infrastructures, technologies, and who they target and how they target them. Fact. I've gone to the highest echelons of activism, also fact. And you will find all you will find there is spies and people influenced by spies. To continue, because that's a pretty fucking bold statement, needs a little bit of supporting. The reason you will find spies and people influenced by spies, this is in relation to activism, is because spies are obsessed with activism, because activism can create change, and they're desperate to sabotage that change, because change equals risk to their supremacy, and they hate that because their supremacy equals money and more power, and more money and more power. If you paid attention to the way that the global economy has gone in the last couple of decades, we have seen further and further and further consolidation of power, further and further and further erosion of unions, of what unions actually stand for and how they operate, workers' rights altogether, worker-friendly legislation, as the money becomes more collective and as the power becomes more centralized. It makes it easier to control large numbers of people, because you have so successfully hidden away the keys and put them so far out of reach through this massive centralization and through this massive fortress and fucking security team that you have built. Getting to the echelons of power requires complete fucking subservience to the people who are holding the keys at the top. And in this case, it happens to be people who have been involved in these intelligence apparatuses. And it is not just the Five Eyes countries. Like, I just did a video on this because we recently found out that once again, Israel was caught spying on the United States. Once again. Like, this has been happening as a regular occurrence since 1983, when they built software to market specifically to world governments and intelligence agencies that allowed them a backdoor to be able to have access to all of their files. Not only have I talked about this, but Whitney Webb came on the show specifically to talk about it, and has a great article out in Mempress News just recently, again, dealing with this subject about Unit 8200, Israel's version of the NSA, and their history with exactly what Susie Dawson is talking about here. So we're going to go back to this thread now, and then the reason you find spies and people influenced by spies, the upper echelons activism, we talked about that. Back to the thread. Same deal with politics. Spies are obsessed with politics because politics can create change, or could, before it was so heavily infiltrated and defanged as it has become, thanks to the influence by spies. Politicians are targets by default. These days, politicians are the spies. She could not be more right. I'm You guys know, because you watch Slow News Day and you watch Jimmy Dore, and you fucking, or most of you do, so I assume and hope. And his crew has done videos on this as well. The CIA Democrats, the number of people who have been involved in intelligence organizations over the last several years, who have gone on to be um, members of Congress, members of the Senate, or in George H.W. Bush's case, president for 12 years, because Ronald Reagan was a dementia-addled puppet. Let's go back to the thread. Same deal with technology. Spies are obsessed with controlling its strategic direction, rollouts, and particularly the access the public has to new technologies. They want everything first. They want to own it all directly or indirectly. Spies target developers, startups, and buy CEOs. This is no more clear than the fact that the United States has an organization that we know exists in QTEL. InQtel is the venture capital firm that the CIA developed specifically to swoop up these emerging technologies. Grab the web developer, grab the fucking coders, grab the people who are building these things, if not outright leave their intelligence career to move on to start up a tech company. This was evident in Whitney Rubb's reporting in Mempress News, and we discussed it on the show. There are a number of tech startups that have come out of Israel's Unit 8200, and they are named people who have graduated from Unit 8200, have then gone on to start companies with Eric Schmidt from Google and Peter Thiel, who's one of the more evil motherfuckers currently running Palantir, who's selling fucking surveillance technology to ICE and to local police departments. Rayburn is one of my favorite people, Philip Blair. I have had a really fucking busy couple of days, and I'm going to continue to be busy for the rest of the day. My youngest son's godmother is getting married today. So it's been, and my wife is in the wedding. It's been nuts. Speaking of consortium news, though, before I get back to the thread here, Consortium News was founded by a brilliant gentleman named Robert Scheer. Robert Scheer was an activist and a journalist, and just a tremendously smart, tremendously dedicated to the truth, all around decent fucking human being. I just met yesterday a guy that just randomly talking to him. My wife is an accountant and a bookkeeper. This is one of her bookkeeping clients. He's like telling me he went to San Francisco State University, and I was around in the 60s and 70s. I know a little bit about activism and blah, blah, blah. My good friend, Bob Scheer. I was like, hang on. Consortium News, Bob Scheer. And he's like, yeah, Consortium News, Bob Scheer. So I'm gonna get to know this dude a little bit better. And we're gonna see if we can't get some good conversation out of Robert Scheer's fucking friend since college. Back to the thread, though. I'm stoked about that, though. I am. Spies treat being a spy as a pathway to operating in the private sector, contracting their services back to their former employers, essentially us, the public. What a joke. And chew up and spit out their own low-level colleagues on their way up the same way they do the public, which, yeah, absolutely. As a practice, capitalism teaches us to chew up and spit out low level everyone and to be 100% predatory. They've been teaching the art of war at business school for decades now. It's not like anyone's out here to better themselves personally so that they may then continue to better their community. They're teaching the fucking art of war. Spies are the biggest insider traders, money launderers, tax avoiders, arms dealers, and organized white-collar criminals on this planet. They pass legislation to protect themselves from being held accountable for their crimes while committing every crime that exists daily. We know this. We know just a month or so ago, Congress passed House Resolution 3494, which gave impossibly more immunity to the CIA in terms of these low-level assets, all the way up, protecting their identity, giving them blanket immunity in the press, and the squad formed up behind the CIA to co-sign this. Right now, Julian Assange is sitting in the UK's Guantanamo Bay and Belmarsh prison. Chelsea Manning and Jeremy Hammond now too are sitting in the same prison in Virginia. Susie Dawson is appealing for asylum in Russia because she's been pursued out of her home country. Because there has been legislation passed for these motherfuckers to protect themselves, because they committed crimes and these people exposed them. The worst possible crimes were committed by the people who have a quote unquote legal right, or are arguing they have a legal right, to keep detained, to keep torturing, to potentially execute or all but guarantee the death of the people who brought to reality the existence that these crimes were committed by these people. Back to the thread, spies are obsessed with the media because, just like activism and tech, media at its best has the ability to facilitate change and therefore to fuck up the spies' plans for their supremacy and money-making schemes. Therefore, they target or become journalists and infiltrate media organizations. Now, if you've made it to this show, because I realize that nobody goes from I'm not buying 100% of what Rachel Maddow is selling to let's see what the guy on Slow News Day is all about. There's a progression. If you've made it here, you know that corporate media is bullshit. You know that 6 companies control 95% of all US media. You know that there's a documentation going back to the 50s and Project Chaos, where intelligence organizations within the United States have infiltrated journalism. There's so much historical evidence. Fucking Anderson goddamn Cooper is not only an heir to the Vanderbilt fortune, or the heir to the Vanderbilt fortune, but admits to being a CIA intern. Marcos Malitsis, the Daily Kos guy and the Vox guy, talks about, oh yeah, when I got out of military intelligence, I interviewed for the CIA, but you know what? I didn't get the job, and now I have a giant media corporation that promotes centrist warmongering Democrats. But the CIA did not give me any kind of job. I just happened to build this giant media platform all on my own. Back to the thread. Spies call their intelligence agencies The business. They call their transnational collusion channels where they scratch each other's backs the global network. And they call their targeting of millions of innocent people worldwide risk management. The spies are corporations. When I say they are corporations, I mean they're literally corporations. Go look up NSA Corporation in the Snowden documents, except for you'll have to find that somewhere other than the Snowden archives that the Guardian had set up, because they don't exist there, or the Intercept had set up because they don't exist there anymore. There's no Snowden archive in there. The grotesque targeting methods of the spies are even more egregious to me than them stealing billions of dollars from the public every year. It is the deeply immoral and personal nature of the crimes they perpetuate and its impacts on global civilization that offends me the most. Susie's words, but I agree with them. She continues. The grooming process they engage in with targets is exactly the same grooming process that pedophiles use to target vulnerable children. From "you're so clever and wonderful, I love you," to "it's just our secret, no one can know." It's a sick travesty perpetuated on a daily basis. They steal years of their targets' lives, if not destroying or taking their lives in the entirety. And they're not doing this to get nuclear codes or stop a war. They're doing it to start wars, or to stop activism movements, or to influence a journalist, scientist, lawyer, or teacher. In the UK, police spies assumed false identities and sexually exploited and even impregnated activists. Sex obtained by active and coordinated deception isn't sex. It is rape. State-sponsored, public-funded rape inflicted on people who cared about animal welfare or the environment. She continues. In my home country of New Zealand, spies were not just set on activists and journalists like myself, or on political parties like the Internet Party of New Zealand, but they were even used on child sexual assault complainants and earthquake insurance claimants. Get it yet? No one is safe from them. What they do to ordinary citizens, derailing and sabotaging their lives, violating their bodies, or inflicting upon them a slow or medical death, pales in comparison to what these institutional parasites do in war zones, because no military strike occurs without their involvement. Think about this shit for a minute. Like wrap your dome around what just happened there. And then realize that this is there's nothing that I have read out loud or that Susie has written in this thread that you cannot find 100% corroborating evidence that has been either admitted in declassified documents or brought out in open court. And this is just how the operation of this of intel agencies has evolved over the years. What do they do? Okay. Every single military strike in every country the global empire invades or operate in is teed up, facilitated, watched over, studied, and then replicated by the very same intelligence agencies that are also at home targeting their own domestic citizenry. We know that this is factual because every single time the U.S. tries to manufacture consent or confusion for yet another illegal war, what we're told over and over, the thing that we're beat over the head with, is it's the intelligence reports that confirm. This intelligence report says this is a high-ranking intelligence official, unnamed sources within the intelligence community. That's what they use to beat over our head the manufactured consent and confusion for another illegal war every single time. There's no, you can't, there's no good faith argument to these statements. None. Afghanistan, Iraq, Libya, Syria, Yemen, every war intelligence agencies are an integral part of the targeting and information systems used to drop every single bomb. These people are mass murderers on an unimaginable scale. They are war criminals. They are anti-life. In 2017, I started an initiative called #Anti-Spy-Bill, which campaigned to crowdsource a list of malpractices in which spies should be outlawed from participating. Since then, I have realized that these agencies don't need to be railed in. They need to be decommissioned entirely. Care about the environment? War is the greatest threat to the environment. War can't happen without intelligence agencies and their targeting systems. Care about economics? The banks? The spies object that too. Privacy? Spies are the ultimate violators of privacy. Do you care about workers' rights? Guess who's been infiltrating and destabilizing unions for a century at least? Absolutely. Campaign against austerity and privatization. Who do you think is sucking up half the public person determined to continue sucking up from the public tea? No aspect of modern society is untouched by the dirty hands of spies. None of it. Not even education, not science, not local government, not even credit card scores. All of it, they're up to their elbows in it. So the spies have to go. All of them. She says, I see a lot of people already starting to say, but the spies aren't the problem. They work for the governments. Let's get this straight. I've studied their own documents. No, they do not work for the government. They work for what they call their customers. And their customers aren't just government departments. Their customers include non-governmental entities and scary ones at that, such as the Federal Reserve Bank of America, NSA customers, among others. They station spies on site at their customers' locations and call their stationed spies customer liaison officers. The reason they're stationed there is so the customer has easy access to the spy agency databases on tap. Another clue they don't work for the governments. They lie to and hide things from their government overseers. The Snowden documents show that the NSA has a pathological obsession with restricting access and flow of information to Congress, and the NSA aren't the only ones. Remember the CIA getting caught hacking the Senate Intel Committee? Does everybody remember when that got dragged out into open public that the NSA was hacking the Senate Intelligence Committee while the Senate Intelligence Committee was looking into the NSA illegally spying on American citizens? During that, the Senate Intel Committee investigating the NSA for illegally spying on American citizens got hacked by the NSA, and we still have an NSA. She says, I started the #1 versus 5I, which I'll put in the thing, with some other great activists recently to try and get accountability for the devastation rogue intelligence agencies are my life, but it's not enough. Human society will never be able to progress until we get rid of the spies. It's time to address, as a species, the root of the thousands of individual afflictions we're suffering from. And an international control system exists, which is exploited by a very few with access for their own benefit at all costs. That system runs on information. We shut down the information systems of the spies, then they have nothing to leverage, nothing to exploit, nothing to trade, nothing with which to control us. Like at IO Error said, cut off their water supply, shut off the lights, pull the fucking plug on tyranny. End thread. Lift up my church hand for a minute, and then we can kind of we can kind of get into some possible solutions for this, because out of all of the accurate statements that were made in that entire brilliant thread, which, by the way, if you are on Twitter and you haven't read this thing, please do it at Susie3D. At any rate, out of all of the incredibly accurate statements in that thread, that system runs on information. It is the one that we can use to find solutions, because let's be honest, that ain't exactly feel good reading. Sean O'Brien, who was with the Yale Privacy Lab, who's been on this show, who's been on the Unity for J Vigils, likes to remind people that forewarned is forearmed and knowledge is power. So how do you shut down the information systems of the spies? What you've got to do is leave behind all of your fucking corporate media. Go look for individual companies or companies that provide you with encryption software that don't have a back channel to a spy agency. Stop storing your data on the cloud. Get a device that has your information, that pulls it directly from your computer into an anti-cloud storage device. Always use end-to-end encrypted communication, because there's too many of us for an AI to catch everything and flag everything. Human eyes and human resources and monetary resources have to be dedicated into breaking into end-to-end encrypted messaging that doesn't have a backdoor built into it. What does have a backdoor built into it? Anything made by Facebook. WhatsApp has a backdoor into it, and activists use that all the time. Instagram Messenger has backdoors built into it. Facebook Messenger has a backdoor built into it. If you use any of those products, please stop. Get off of Google. You know, at least for Gmail, if you want the Proton Mail address to this show, I'm happy to provide it. Both WhatsApp and Instagram have backdoors built into them that allow any law enforcement agency to go in and read your private messages, to read anyone's private messages. It is a gross violation of your civil liberties. It is a disgusting fucking breach of privacy. It is a fucking violation of the Constitution, like that goddamn means anything. But yeah, so Snapchat, absolutely. Snapchat has never reported a profit. Snapchat is a 100% In-Q-Tel funded app. It is a straight up CIA app. Never reported a profit. Been around for 6 or 7 years now. If something continues to fail every year, why are you keeping it alive? Why are you keeping it funded? Fuck Snapchat. We know because of Vault 7 that they can breach Signal. I have heard good things about Telegram, but I need to research that a little bit more. Fuck yeah, Snapchat started facial recognition. Do you guys remember when a few years ago, when it came out that like they were trying to make the fucking Juggalos a terrorist organization, because Juggalo makeup was the one thing that couldn't beat facial recognition, and then instantly Snapchat and fucking Facebook came out with, hey, we're going to paint your face like an evil clown. Here, let us take your picture and fucking plot every recognizable line for you, and then come up with this clown makeup to superimpose over your face. Well, so look, Anthony, everybody that bought into Snapchat got duped on Snapchat, but I don't think Snapchat promised end-to-end encryption. At any rate, if it did, the people that were end-to-end encrypting it were the CIA. So that's not good. But for everybody that has bought their weed on Snapchat, dude, I wouldn't really worry about that unless you're buying like a few 100 pounds at a time. Yeah, the aging app is a spud. All that shit, dude. All the let's map your face and then put stuff on it that you would ordinarily put on to disguise yourself if you were an activist or at a protest or organizing some kind of quote unquote allegedly subversive event. Yeah, those are all now things that are just handy little apps from these organizations with NQTEL funding or NQTEL boards of directors on their boards. And they all want to map your face. They all want to. It's fucking. It's the function of the product. Like if that didn't set off an alarm bell, I don't know. Yeah, no, I use social media too. Uh, um, I use social media mostly to promote the show. I really try not to get bogged down into fucking stupid social media arguments. I did for a little bit yesterday, and I didn't feel any better about it at the end of it. Um, but I mean, it's there to mine our data and turn our lives into little bits of code that then turn into dollars for somebody else. Um, Tom Hartman is a lovable fucking guy, and I can't stress this enough. Nobody gets to this show because they read something in the New York Times that they thought might be fucked up, and then straight went to the fucking to to this neighborhood. Um, Everybody is on a path. Everybody is on a progression. Hopefully, and I'm guarantee you that there's way more on the other side of this show. Like depending on how deep you want to go into this, there's miles of more sandbox to the other way. So it's where you were at, wherever you were when Tom Hartman made sense to you, and where you are at now is clearly not the same spot. There's no I was dumb about this, or I can't believe I used to be this stupid. It's just where you were on that path at that point, and rather than kick yourself over it, you can recognize that you're still on a path, and that you now wouldn't want to punch down. You don't want to you don't punch down. Hopefully now. So when you're further along on the path, hopefully you won't look back at here and want to punch down, because you're punching down at yourself. You don't need to do that. Everybody's on a fucking journey. Recognize that, recognize where you are now, and don't let any of that animosity towards your former self or even towards the people that were influencing your former self carry you. Yeah, don't let that carry your day. Don't. Tom and TYT serve the same purpose, lead on to better people, but some yo-yos get stuck. Yeah, well, I mean, that's the thing, though, dude. There's a lot more comfortability, and probably a lot more people that you could look at for collective agreement if you're part of that TYT Tom Hartman herd. I understand why people use that as a way station. I understand why people get stuck there. TYT does a particularly good job of emotionally appealing to people's biases. And once they've got you and your bias emotionally worked up, then they can throw a couple of numbers at you and really hook you. Thoughts on Howie Hawkins as a candidate for president in 2020? I respect Howie Hawkins because he calls himself an eco-socialist. He has an entire section on his campaign website about the need to liberate Julian Assange, to pardon whistleblowers. But Howie Hawkins has been in that DC activism bubble for a long time. Howie Hawkins is the guy that originally co-wrote the Green New Deal back in 2010, not the bullshit stripped down corporate one that Jeff Markey and AOC have presented, backed by corporate funded, oil and gas funded Sunrise Movement. Not that Green New Deal, the original Green New Deal, as presented by the Green Party. Howie Hawkins co-wrote that. Howie Hawkins also has immeasurably dumb shit to say about Russiagate. Howie Hawkins is really, really disappointing when it comes to falling into a Cold War mentality in terms of that particular bullshit smear. I wish that Howie Hawkins was I don't know, not perpetuating a fucking debunked conspiracy theory that's done nothing but bolster Donald Trump's credibility. I wish that was the case. If you want to look at a Green Party candidate, Chris, and you want if you want to support any Green Party candidate for president, and I don't endorse people, but the one that I would recommend that you look into is Ian Schlakman. Ian Schlakman is he's been on the Free Assange Vigil. He's put out a lot of incredibly good statements that I generally agree with, up until the point of promoting massive government. Yeah. The young Katzenbergs. TYT just grifted their audience for like $200,000 too, man. It's fucking hilarious. And they have Ryan Grimm on, and they send him off to The Intercept, and he goes and he writes a book about we the people, and then fucking promoting this like ridiculously fucking bastardized concept of democratic socialism and fucking socialism in general. Yeah, fuck those guys. Fuck those guys. What about Cambridge Analytica, Ruben? I know the only two people that I know that are running for president in the Green Party currently are Howie Hawkins and Ian Schlachman. And of the two, I would prefer Ian Schlachman. We got people and your money. That's beautiful. Oh, that's beautiful. You know, I was on a post debate show hosted by Niall Elcom. And it's on his channel. His show's called Niall Elcom versus the World. You can go check that out. And I made it perfectly clear going into this post debate show that I had not watched the debates. I was at a meeting. I had no interest in a masturbatory shit show where consultants are counting money the entire time and advertisers are counting money the entire time. And campaigns are just hoping to God they stay on script and get it fucking right. Like, oh, it's so tedious. Bill Burr should be the head of the CIA. That's fucking hilarious. But anyway, this post-election debate thing that I went on, I met a real life, like, not a 64-year-old white man centrist, and he kept giving the case for neoliberalism, and he kept giving the case for incrementalism. And if you're starting out at the point of we can only accept table scraps at best maybe every couple of years, but we're probably going to triangulate right and negotiate further right every single time. If you're accepting that as the base from with which you want society to operate, I can't pretend like the process is real. I can't pretend like any of that is real. And it got a little bit heated, and I spent about two hours yelling at a gay black man. Not because he was a gay black man, but because he was putting forth the argument of centrism that I think is basically fucking murder. What do I think about voting for the Dem candidate in a general, no matter who? Lots of my friends say Trump is too bad and the Supreme Court. So here's the thing about that. Here's the thing about blue, no matter who. Blue, no matter who, is voting for austerity. It's saying I'll go ahead and give another 4 years to the furthest right wing, just because. Donald Trump, I can't stress this enough. Donald Trump is in the WWE Hall of Fame. Donald Trump was a game show host on NBC before he started becoming a famous birther and running for president. Donald Trump has been in enough movies with speaking roles that he could have a Screen Actors Guild membership and union card if he so desired. I don't know if he does or not, but he could be a member of the Screen Actors Guild. Donald Trump is a failed trust fund rich kid businessman turned actor because he was so cartoonish as a failed businessman. People in Hollywood said this guy is fucking made for Hollywood. He fit in perfectly in the world of WWE. He is not running the country. His legislation that has been signed into law and the minutia inside the legislation is 100% the same old tired GOP agenda that has gone through every fucking Congress from Jesus, like the 80s on. Donald Trump is not a new, unique monster. Donald Trump is there to run out and say some racist shit to distract us while all of this ordinary GOP legislation gets passed. And the Democrats, the blue no matter who ones, certainly would continue that trend that we're going to get into office, we're going to stop mean tweeting, and we're going to immediately triangulate to the right and then negotiate further to the right for every piece of legislation that we pass. I don't think that voting for pre-selected candidates in a rigged system inside a duopoly presents a realistic avenue to substantive change. I don't think we can vote or legislate our way out of an oligarchy. I don't think that a revolution happens at the ballot box. But I do think that we can help make our communities more sustainable without the help of government by pushing for the most progressive, most leftist, most openly fucking socialist local government possible. In California, we've been electing right wingers with a D next to their name the entire goddamn time. And we have the world's 5th largest economy and a fucking increasing homeless problem that has almost fucking reached the tipping point in a lot of our major cities. So, I think that there's room to maneuver in local politics, local activism. I think if you can drive your communities to become more food secure, and by doing that, make the communities close to you more food secure and less dependent on big box stores, less dependent on the influence of the government, less dependent on the media that drives the need for division and dependence on government. That once you really involved in politics that exist in this Republican Democrat scope, because they want you to continue for voting for Republicans. They want you to continue voting for Democrats, all less than half the country that does. All of that. They want to keep that process alive. They want it to be they want it to be not 100% participatory. You have to make it hard for people to vote, and you can only give them 2 choices. And the 2 choices that you can give them have to be center right to far right. And those 2 choices are supposed to represent 100% of the political scope. But in reality, they fall into this very small space of center right to far right. If they can keep you divided over which one of Team A or Team B is better, but always voting for Team A or Team B, then your dependence on their media apparatus, your dependence on their products, your dependence on their stores for your food continues. If we starve that beast, we can effectively move forward with exactly what I started this goddamn show about, which is Susie Dawson's fucking words. This system runs on information. When we shut down the information systems of the spies, they have nothing to leverage, nothing to exploit, nothing to trade, nothing with which to control us. The erosion of economic hitmen as the starting point for our foreign policy, by the simple act of making our communities more food secure, we eliminate a giant chunk of influence that these agencies have over us. Grandma Christine, what's happening? I won't vote Dem no matter who. If I voted Biden, I would be guilty of all of the dead innocents in whatever war he starts. Yeah, the choice I had in my last congressional race was Coward Nunez, who's afraid to talk to constituents, and a pig prosecutor who's recruited to lose to him. Yeah, no, I know. So a lot of people, a lot of commentators, a lot of YouTubers will tell you that money in politics is the biggest problem, and that is, if you're looking at American politics as, okay, well, the elections wouldn't be rigged if we just got rid of the money. I don't think those commenters are looking at a big enough picture. I don't think they are. Money in politics is what allows the most bribable bot candidates to get elected, but they're getting elected because the systems by which we use to vote on are corrupted, malware infested pieces of fucking bullshit that any fucking 12-year-old can hack and change the results of. If you want free and fair elections in the US, you have to demand it. If you want to demand it and have it be effective, you have to shut down polling centers. We need a mass mobilization of people to shut down polling centers and fucking halt elections until we get multiple party observers with a filmed process on an open source device that anyone can access with hand counted paper ballots. I don't trust any of these motherfuckers. I don't trust a single United States individual Secretary of State to honestly oversee an election. I don't. Seemed as though Biddy's chip malfunctioned. I didn't watch any of the debates, man. I didn't. I had a clamper meeting that I had to go to. I took off at like 5. I ended a live stream right before that. I took off at 5. I got back right before 9 and immediately started setting up to do the post debate analysis and commentary. After openly admitting that I didn't watch the debates, I was on that show with my co-host Taylor Hudak from the Free Assange Vigils, and in the interest of full disclosure, while I was at my meeting, she was texting me with debate updates, so I wasn't like totally unaware going in. I wasn't walking into the room completely cold. Canada's involved in the wars. Yeah, so the thing going on in the chat looks to be like, if Canada doesn't have money in politics, why are they involved in the wars? I explained this at the top of the show, Chris. This entire show has been based on a Susie Dawson thread where she breaks down the fully saturated influence that spies have had and the effect that they have had, and draws attention to the fact. I'll read it again. Oh, god damn it. I see a lot of people already starting to say, but the spies aren't the problem. They work for the government. And this relates to Chris Walsh, exactly what you're asking about. The Canadian government is influenced by money. Why are they involved in the wars? Let's get this straight. These are Susie Dawson's words. I'm going to be reading them. They're her words. I happen to agree with them. Let's get this straight. I've studied their own documents. No, they do not work for the government. They work for what they call their customers. And their customers aren't just governmental departments. They include non-governmental entities, and scary ones at that, such as the Federal Reserve Bank of America and SA customers, among others. This is Canada is a member of the Five Eyes intelligence organization, Chris Walsh. Five Eyes is an intelligence apparatus that is incorporated by, but is consisted of the US, Canada, New Zealand, Australia, and the UK. All of these intelligence sharing networks also have extensive governmental contracts, front companies that get awarded governmental contracts that that surround mineral rights or other natural resources, some sort of flow of resources, or weapons or drugs or cash. So that's why. The Canadian military being involved in Afghanistan in the first place, being one of the very first countries to sign on board with George Bush's 100% illegal invasion of Iraq and invading Afghanistan and fighting the Mujahideen while blaming the Taliban. All of that stems from intelligence agency reports and stems from PNAC too. But there's, I mean, Jesus, dude, the amount of people from the Project for New American Century that have ties to both George H.W. Bush's White House and George Bush's time as CIA director, there's no separating the intelligence agencies from the horrific shit that our government does to us. The fact that it's legal to bribe people running for office in the US per Citizens United, it just goes to show how much more influence that they have here. I do not know the name of the Canadian mining company. It keeps getting brought up in American intelligence involvement with Haiti. I don't. I should. Yeah, Britain and former British colonies make up Five Eyes. You're absolutely right, Ruben. And we just talked about this on the show, the complete compromising of the Guardian newspaper by MI5. I've recommended the book Finks a number of times. Finks, the subtitle for which is How the CIA Fooled the Smartest People in Journalism. And fooled, even the author admits, is an incorrect term in the title of that book. Bought or became the smartest guys in journalism would be a better term for it. All you got to do is dig into the geomap, see what lays where, and look up a product the U.S. claims we must produce, consistently right on for mapping takeovers. Heard the Trump administration wants to round up California's homeless folks. I have not heard that. I don't. Will you post a link, Moose Cow? Yeah, somebody post a link. I haven't seen it. Like I said, the whole point of this show really is to use mainstream sources as little as possible. So in order to separate their influence from my content, I go out of my way to not. It was on RT. I'll look at it. Again, so much of media relies on the narrative. I'm gonna try and find a document about it. Um, what I've found and what has been advised to me is that reading the documents that come directly out of the government, it provides you with a much more accurate picture than reading the spin that follows. Um, so I'm making it a point to be more mindful of studying the documents and studying the independent media and being the independent media as I relay the documents to you. Um, I want to do that more so than I want to, but it's certainly fucking disconcerting. Um, that they're talking about rounding up California's homeless and putting them in camps. That's fucking wild. Um, when did I find out the Grateful Dead were shills? I was a part of all that, right? Uh, yeah, I was a part of all that. I to a degree probably still am, even though I don't actively involve myself in the scene anymore. I mean, I'm fucking 1 to 0 degrees of separation away from a lot of those people. Um, so when did I find out? Okay, man. Let's do this. Um, I first started going to Grateful Dead shows in 1989. In 1992, Operation Dead End began. Operation Dead End was a an undercover and sting investigation by the FBI. They started. They wanted to specifically infiltrate um, the the movement of psychedelics across the country in large quantities by members of the Grateful Dead family network. Um, by the time Jerry Garcia died in 1995, so many like old school fucking members of a, how do I say this live on air? There are several different, I guess, flavors or varietals of LSD 25. And you'll commonly hear people talk about like amber or lavender or silver or check. Um, there are, or fluff or Owsley, like different varieties of LSD, and you have different experiences based on what they cut the chemical with. You were born in 89? Right on, man. I was born in 78. Uh, at any rate, the it was kind of, back in the day, it was kind of divided into like sort of different families or tribes as to who ran which varietal of LSD. Bringing down the Fluff family was a stated goal of Operation Dead Drop. Some of those people are just now getting out of prison. Some of those people um, avoided prison by becoming what was known around the scene as Dready Fetties. Fucking Dready Fetties. I was aware that the scene was pretty much fully infiltrated about the time I was old enough to start becoming a part of it. It didn't stop me because, stupid fucking teenage kid with a shit ton of money and no responsibilities, or what seemed like a shit ton of money. It didn't stop me from becoming a part of it, but it did stop me from going all the way with it. And I only narrowly, allegedly avoided serious time by being so goddamn paranoid. Is the band Widespread Panic a part of this too? Let's put a pin in that for a minute. When did I find out that the Grateful Dead were like basically part of a larger scale influence campaign? I mean, people would talk about it online. It was a conversation that people were having in the early to mid 90s, like we all knew, or we all should have known. I don't know, man. I mean, I've seen too many MK Ultra and fucking Mockingbird documentaries, and I've read too many documents over the last fucking 15 years. So, I'll say I knew during when I was an active participant, but I was fucking dumb enough to not let it stop me. Although it did prevent me from completely going fully overboard into it. I believe that at this point in 2019, I have all but cut any influencer or infiltrated person out of my life. But I'm not 100% sure. I live in Santa Cruz County. But to widespread panic, though, I mean, so here's what happened after Jerry died. At least here's what happened the way that I see it, because I was a part of all of that. Deadlot had already gotten pretty fucked up. People that were trying to carry on in the tradition of, without being actual fucking CIA liaisons, the tradition of the Merry Pranksters were pretty fucking horrified by the emergence of just straight fucking drugged out wannabe fucking gangster fish kids showing up on lot. I find it funny Grateful Dead Day at Giant Stadium. MK Ultra, the lady was talking about remembering doing an op against actor Danny Glover. So check this shit out, Chris Walsh. Yes, Danny Glover was an activist back in the day. Danny Glover went to San Jose State University. Danny Glover's good friend at San Jose University was Boots Riley's father. Boots Riley, of course, went on to found the Coup, which he described as a punk funk communist revolution. that played music. Boots Riley also wrote "Sorry to Bother You," and if you have not seen that movie, you should go see it. Yeah, yeah. The Danny Glover grew up in the Bay Area, San Francisco State University, all that shit. Um, let's circle back around though to this thing because I lived through 100% of that. That's when Jerry died and Fish blew up and the fucking Further Festival began and all of that shit and widespread panic really started to blow up. That's yeah, is as Chris Walker said, uh, uh, I was a part of all of that. And I was a part of all of that from the allegedly extra legal side. Um, the fake gangster fish kids that really became the avenue for the hard drugs in the mid 90s. I know for a fact were fucking straight up intelligence agency compromised. I know for a fact because I have at one point had access to some of the depositions. Again, I was around for a lot of this shit. I also remember a period in the late 90s where I was going to a heroin overdose funeral about every 6 weeks from someone that I had known personally. So that sucked. But of course, widespread panic was infiltrated. I mean, people that wanted to hide out from Fish Tour but still wanted to go to fucking live music every day went straight to widespread panic. Why there wouldn't be an agent or two with a fucking lens on that, I don't know. As far as what responsibilities does the band bear in terms of promoting this culture, if they are compromised, I can't answer that with any authority. I can't. Not that I haven't thought about it. Or I mean, at this point, don't see how they couldn't, but you don't see, or at least you didn't see when I was there and I was a part of it. You didn't see the fucking you didn't see the blatant federal presence of exclusively like meth and heroin like you did on Fish Lot. Frosty Buckets. I feel bad for Greta. She's being infiltrated and I don't think she knows it. I wonder if she's aware of Vault 7. So Frosty, and thank you for being a part of the stream this morning. I don't know if you saw or not. I did a video about a week ago that was called I think it was something about like, real talk on green capitalism. And for my sourced material, I used a wonderful series of articles written by Cory Morningstar out of the Art of Annihilation, and it was called "The Manufacturing of Greta Thunberg for Consent." And I broke down a lot of the points in that series of that article. And after that video came out, the person who wrote it got a hold of me on Twitter, and we're starting a dialogue, and I hope to have them on soon. As to whether or not she knows, I think that she was specifically chosen because of her Asperger's. I think that her parents being prominent environmentalists and already hooked up with the organization that put up a bunch of the initial funding for Sunrise Movement and Extinction Rebellion, and the manufacturing of Greta Thunberg. I think that because her parents are have been tied into that organization, um, that she became their, well, as the reporting bears out, first and only choice to be the face of this movement. You should be able to, Muscal, copy it all directly, and you should. I don't know, maybe not. Do if you can't post it in the chat, at some point today, drop it in the comment section, please, after this uploads. Um, hey, Rogue Gal, good morning. We should talk about her being a possibility of a candidate for Vault 7. Well, I mean, that's kind of what we're doing right now, Frosty. Um, as to whether or not Greta Thunberg has read Vault 7, I would guess I would guess not. I would guess that that people who started out from a back to the reason I did this show today, from a point of being influenced by spies or themselves being spies. If that's your base point of operations, you are going to, by reflexive action, prevent someone like Greta Thunberg from developing a relationship with anyone involved in WikiLeaks or whistleblowing. You are going to discredit that source. You are going to do everything you can to shield her from that as an outlet. So I would guess that I would guess that she hasn't read Vault 7. As to whether or not she's a candidate for it, I think that I think that it would be hard to argue that she's not. This is a green capitalism is what saves oligarchies and what allows the continuation of wage slavery. It allows the continuation of fucking peonage. It allows for the proliferation of a for-profit prison industry, a global incarceration network, a global terror network, a global defense network to fight the global terror network that you fucking built. So Rocal, you're a little bit you got in a little bit late. The reason I came on today is because Susie Dawson put out this incredible thread on Twitter, which I'll link to in the description. And it closes with the need to starve the system of information that runs these spy agencies. So we did kind of talk about that a little bit. Again, I really think that one of the most revolutionary acts, or one of the most subversive acts you can commit, is to make your community food secure, like locally food secure. I think that if you can then extend that security to the communities around you, and develop relationships with them based on a non-governmentally controlled exchange of goods or services, or at least as least governmentally controlled exchange of goods and services as possible, that is a fantastic way to immediately kick off starving this beast of influence that these agencies have on us. Yeah, I Frosty, I if you go back to the probably about the middle of this video now, I made a giant pitch for encrypted end-to-end encrypted services. Again, if you have WhatsApp or Instagram or Facebook Messenger, that has a backdoor written into it that will allow any law enforcement agency access to anyone's private messages for any reason. Federal information, the CLab online. Yeah, throw the link in the comments. I'll open up City Lab on my laptop here. But I think I'm gonna go ahead and end this right now. And I'll come back on here shortly. I basically have till like 2 o'clock this afternoon before I have to go to that wedding. So I'm gonna see what kind of content I can't get out here today. Okay. Yeah, so I'll read that story, and I'll dig into it a little bit. I'll see if there's not a corresponding document. And maybe we'll do another stream on the homeless, because I did one a couple of days ago, based off of a couple of new reports. But it was focused pretty much exclusively on California. And I don't feel like that's fair to those of you who don't live in California. You know what? I've gone to more weddings in the last couple of weeks than I have in several years. I have. And the only reason is because one was my brother-in-law was getting married, and this is the godmother of my youngest son who's getting married today, and they've been family friends for a number of years. So I hate putting on uncomfortable clothes to go sit or stand in uncomfortable weather to then go be around a bunch of people who are, overly pretentiously dressed. I'm not good with any of that. I fucking hate that shit. But I got a weed pen, so it's all right. At any rate, I'll be back here in a little bit. I know I say that a lot and then I fucking disappear for like a day. But in this case, I only have a little bit with which I can fuck off. And then the rest of today and a good chunk of tomorrow is also all about work. I will be live with Nico House on this channel tomorrow, though, so that should be fun. Until next time, this has been Slow News Day. Oh, shit, I have a Patreon. And if you currently support independent media and you would like to support this show, you can go to the Patreon and become a member. There's no donation levels. There's no minimum or anything like that. www.patreon.com/slownewsday. I'm working on making that a really fucking inclusive channel for you guys. So yeah, this has been Slow News Day. I'm Steve Poikinen, and good luck to us all.